And I would thank you. And I will give the floor to Igor to lead us through this topic.
Okay, thank you very much, Henk, Rebecca, for organizing this, and colleagues from ENLIGHT Rise Work Package 6, that you are doing this great job dealing with the public engagement of research, which I think is a topic very much related to what we are going to talk about today. Okay, so it's an honor and a pleasure for us, for Gloria and myself, to be, speaking to you, sharing our experience within ENLIGHT regarding the work that we are doing in Impact, and also our expectation is to have a fruitful discussion after that we deliver some information that we have prepared for you all. So I think we can maybe start sharing our presentation, the screen, Gloria, in such a way that we can just start with the seminar. Here it is. Thank you. And okay. So I think that for today we have prepared some contents. Here we have them. We will introduce very briefly who we are. I mean, the ENLIGHT. All of us know ENLIGHT, but just a very brief comment in order to set the scene and have a wider context. And we would like also to introduce the ENLIGHT Impact Team, at least the Impact Team in the context of ENLIGHT Rise. Then we will just go directly into the definition of impact, the definition of impact that we are using in ENLIGHT in such a way that we can have all the people in the seminar on the same page, understanding the concept of impact. Then we will just very briefly give some information, indications about how, what an impact-driven university means and how we can move towards that. And then we will present how we are assessing the impact of university activities, and particularly the methodology that we have developed in the context of ENLIGHT during the past years, and the process in which we are currently. And of course, as I said, what we expect from this webinar is to have a discussion with you all about the work that we are doing, which is the work of the Alliance itself. So I think we can go directly to the first point. I mean, a very brief indication of who we are. You all know that we are ENLIGHT. There are maybe some people which are not very much familiar with ENLIGHT. And well, just as a reminder, now we can say that we are an alliance of 10. The University of Bern from Switzerland as the 10th university in the Alliance, and which is also taking part as an associate university in the new project that have just started. Then, as you can see, when we see and read the mission of ENLIGHT, we can see that it is written in such a way that it is clear from the very beginning that ENLIGHT is an impact-driven alliance, and an alliance which is tackling transformation of the European higher education area in order to empower learners as the future globally engaged citizens, and looking for synergies in our research and innovation potential in such a way that together with other partners, we can jointly tackle major societal transitions and to promote equitable quality of life and sustainability, which is at the very core of our intention, of our mission statement as universities. This is translated in 6 flagship domains. Okay, so here you see we started with 5: health and well-being, digitalization, climate change, energy and circular economy, and equity. And in this second stage that we are initiating now, we have included also culture and creativity as a new flagship domain in such a way that we can have a broader spectrum of challenges, a broader spectrum of disciplines within ENLIGHT, and with a focus on these areas, but thinking in our cities, regions, and communities, how we can bring value to them, doing what we do, what we know to do. We are a university, so our mission is related to knowledge transmission, creation, transfer to society. But we will see how this can be translated in being an impact-driven organization. ENLIGHT so far has been articulated through two institutional-wide projects. One, the original project, was submitted under the Erasmus Plus program. This project finished last year successfully. Then we have a complementary concurrent project in the context of, on the framework, of Horizon 2020, which is the ENLIGHT Rise. It is in this particular project in which we have this work package dealing with the public engagement of research. And now, as you know, and as I said, we have started what we call ENLIGHT 2.0. We had the kickoff meeting in Uppsala in November last year. And in these three projects, there are many different work packages, working groups, and so on. But specifically, we have dedicated work packages for impact. In the case of the ENLIGHT Erasmus Plus project, then this was work package 6, with a clear objective to create a comprehensive methodology and tools for measuring the long-term impact of ENLIGHT on people, communities, institutions, and systems at large. So the focus and the approach was to create this methodology for impact assessment, and how we can operationalize that methodology through some tools, some toolkits that we have already produced and that we are testing right now. Then we have the ENLIGHT Rise project, which is the project in which we are currently in this session. Here we have a work package, the work package 8, in which we are exploring the frontiers of a common impact-driven research and innovation agenda. And here I would like to highlight that, here we are delivering this webinar, Gloria and myself, but this is a teamwork, and I am very happy to say it is a real pleasure to work with our co-leaders, Esther Desmet from the University of Ghent, Oni Amik and Luis Jano from the University of Galway. I think that we have created a very, good team. We are having very fruitful discussions. I think it is a privilege to work with the three of them. And I mean, it is just that we are delivering this webinar, but any of them, Esther, Onia, or Luis, could deliver this webinar perhaps even better than ourselves. And then now we are now in the context also in the ENLIGHT 2.0, and here it is a project with a different structure at the previous projects. And here there is a dedicated task to impact in the context of work package 6, in which we are, building on what we have been accomplishing in these two other projects in order to move forward, moving towards that being that impact-driven university, particularly by creating an impact-driven culture in Alliance and in our universities. And now I think I will give the floor to Gloria, that will just explain what do we mean by impact, and then I will again go into much more detail about an impact-driven university. So Gloria.
Hi, hello. Thank you, Igor. Thank you to colleagues from Work Package 6 from ENLIGHT Rise for this great opportunity to share our thoughts around the impact and our work. And Igor has very well explained how impact is already embedded in our mission statement, but also it is at the core of our activities as well. So now that we know what is ENLIGHT, how we are addressing impact in the different work packages, let's go a little bit deeper and what do we mean by impact? There's lots of confusion and misunderstanding around the concept. So let's put the things clear. What do we understand by impact? During the ENLIGHT lifetime since 2020, when we started working, we have seen very different definitions of impact, most of them coinciding, and you can see in our ENLIGHT Impact repository a whole section about this topic. There is overall research only on the meaning of impact. What we understand in ENLIGHT by impact, this is our own definition that has been itself evolving over time. So what do we understand? And if you take from this session the concept that impact is equal to changes, to transformation, to effects, we are already very happy with. So our definition, and I will read it, it's the effects or changes that we can see, demonstrate, measure, capture on and beyond academia, which happen over time because of an activity intervention by the higher education environment. And we talk about on the institution, on our academia, on our students, academics, staff, leaders, structures, but also beyond academia. And often we talk about societal impact in that context, on society, on economy, on environment. And I come back to that in the next slide. For now, and this has been something that we have been trying to clarify with our different colleagues in ENLIGHT and beyond ENLIGHT as well. It is trying to clarify what is the difference of the impact concept and the other key concepts that we are usually used to work in the higher education environment. So for us, what is not impact, although strongly linked to and interdependent, let's underline that as well, is not performance. It is not quality assurance, not outreach, communication, and dissemination, and not societal engagement. And I'm going deeper to that. It is not performance. And by performance, we understand the accomplishment of an activity, if it was done or not, that activity, task, action. It is not quality assurance because by quality assurance, we understand if that activity task has been done according to certain standards of quality that have been predefined. It is not outreach, communication, and dissemination of that activity task or even the results of that activity or task. But, and let me underline here, in order to be impactful and in order to maximize the impact, it is very important to communicate, to disseminate those results. And to this audience specifically, I think it is important to clarify the distinction also with societal engagement. We understand societal engagement by the engagement, participation, involvement of our civil society players, but this is not necessarily impact. Of course, it is extremely relevant, and it is a key concept again in the pathway for achieving and having impact. But by impact itself, we understand the changes, the transformations. And we need, of course, to co-create with societal players. We need to involve them and their participation since the very beginning of any higher education activity. We can discuss these issues later in the questions and answers, of course. We also often talk, especially in the context of ENLIGHT, impact of education and training activities, and impact of research and innovation activities. I think even if all this is developed in the context of higher education, in the context of our universities, I think that they have been following different trajectories in terms of impact. And especially in what concerns research and innovation activity, there is a different or more consolidated trajectory in terms of impact. And in those contexts, we talk about research impact. Especially in the context of research impact, and here I've taken a snapshot from the website of our ENLIGHT partner university, University of Galway, which, by the way, I would highly recommend to visit the University of Galway toolkit, Impact Toolkit. Only I think you are around. Please free to post the link to it in the chat. We often make a distinction also of scientific academic impact and societal and economic impact. And this is very much linked to what I was saying previously, the impact in and beyond academia. When talking about impact, I think it is also important to take in consideration reach and significance. Reach, we understand the extent, the widespread, the spread of those changes, of those effects, and the significance, the relevance, the importance of those changes, effects to the different stakeholders. Ideally, reach and significance should come together, but they can be only reach with little significance or little significance with a wide reach. So the ideally is that they are all plus. Going deeper, impact versus impact pathways. As there is not a single definition of impact, there is not also a single pathway to impact. There are multiple pathways that can lead us to impact. And these very much depending on the specific activity, the specific stakeholders, the context where this is actually happening. And often we say impact is context-based, and this has to be taken in consideration. And these pathways are really the ways that help us going to impact, to be impactful. And often we illustrate it through what we call the theory of change causal chain of impact, which actually show us and illustrate us how do we go from the inputs to the actual impact. And we have inputs, activities, output, outcome, impact. So these are usually the 5 stages that lead us up to impact. By input, it's what you need, all the resources that you need in order that that project initiative is can be implemented. The activities is actually what you do. The outputs, the products that derive from those activities. The outcomes are the results expected to be achieved from the activities and outputs, and the impacts, the desired impacts, are those changes that are brought about as a direct or indirect result from inputs and outputs. And here I would like to further explain 2 things. Usually inputs, activities, and outputs can be controlled. Whether the outcomes, our expected outcomes, they are under direct influence. We can influence, we can have a direct influence. In the case of impact, it is indirect influence. We usually make here the distinction between the attribution and the contribution. To impact, we contribute to. It is not only dependent on the team behind the activity. So there is an overall contribution to that. Another key message I would like to pass in this slide is that impacts can be desired, undesired, can be expected and can be unexpected. As well, in some cases, and I have a discussion with colleagues here from our Impact Task Force and from our organization as well, Inigo, and I would like to mention his name for his great work on this as well, is positive and negative impacts. Usually, giving an ethical connotation to that as well. So it is important to take those concepts also in consideration. Other key concepts that I think it is important to take in consideration is that, well, we have talked about the concept of impact pathways. Another key concept is impact assessment, is the identification, measurement, evaluation of those changes and the effects and the extent, so the reach of those changes and effects on different stakeholders over time. And this I'm going to talk later on when we talk about our methodology for impact assessment. And then another key concept, impact-driven organization, what we understand by it, and this is our definition that can be always improved, of course. By impact-driven organization, and Igor is going to explain it later on this, is an organization whose strategy, leadership, management is oriented to maximize and minimize positive and negative impacts, respectively. So these are the key concepts, and with that, I leave the floor to Igor on impact-driven organization.
Thank you, Gloria, for this introduction for the concept of impact assessment, and impact-driven organizations. I will go a bit deeper on that concept, particularly when we are talking about universities, impact-driven universities. Let's try to see what we are referring to when we talk about an impact-driven university. And I want to recall that we published a letter in the campus section of Times Higher Education in March last year, just before the conference that we organized here in Bilbao, that states what an impact-driven university is. Particularly, being an impact-driven university is the result of a shift in our way of thinking, acting, and being. And it is a process of opening up our institutions in a time in which universities, we must be clear about that, are no longer the temples of knowledge that used to be, and in which they do not have the monopoly of knowledge. Being an impact-driven university is moving from being a self-centered organization working for society towards working for and with society. And I would say that we need even a further step towards working within society. And this is very much related to the public engagement of universities and particularly of research. So this is moving from the so-called ivory tower towards the entrepreneurial university, even more towards the so-called engaged civic university. And we could eventually think of a more entangled stage in a double process of inside out, but also outside in universities, from society to universities, from universities to society, such a way that we have this sort of entangled stage of university society. And this is the impact-driven university. And which are the three ingredients that we have to activate to move towards an impact-driven university? Gloria just said that. The three ingredients that we have to activate to provoke any real change and institutional transformation are leadership, strategy, and capacities. And our colleague, Esther Desmet, has talked a lot, and I think, very profoundly on the role of leadership and strategy in becoming an impactful university or an impact-driven university. And these three ingredients must be activated to raise impact awareness in our universities, to acquire and spread impact literacy among our academics and staff, and eventually to develop impact readiness, the willingness and preparedness to be impact ready. These three types, there are three types of leadership that must be activated to provoke these three different states of transformation: inspirational for impact awareness, educational for impact literacy, and operational for impact readiness. And of course, we have to design and deploy and mobilize, we have to design and deploy a strategy with a clear vision, with clear objectives and values. And of course, we cannot just stay there. We have to build the capacities and mobilize resources and mechanisms to be impact ready. And as I said before, ENLIGHT has settled down these ideas at its very core through the two initial institutional-wide projects that started up the Alliance and now in this new stage of ENLIGHT 2.0. I will just mention two of the initiatives that we have carried out in the context of the ENLIGHT Rise, okay, not in the overall context. Then, Gloria, we will talk about the methodology, but I would like to highlight two initiatives that have been, well, we are still carrying out them in the context of ENLIGHT Rise, which, as I said, it is focused in exploring these frontiers of common impact-driven research and innovation agendas. Well, the first one is the ENLIGHT toolkit for the self-assessment of research, impact awareness, literacy as readiness, as a self-reflection tool designed for universities who wish to explore at an institutional level the research and impact potential. The toolkit guides a user through focus areas considered as relevant for universities to be research impact-driven, and it is not a benchmarking tool, but a diagnostic aid to identify areas of strengths and weaknesses and where there is space for improvement in the research impact environment. The toolkit can be used in two user modes. You can see there as a university management staff member or as an academic researcher or member of research support staff. The toolkit consists of 19, if I'm correct, major questions organized around these major focus areas and provides the user with instant access to results. It is largely inspired by the institutional health check workbook of Dr. David Phipps and Julie Bailey, but also we have used other resources such as the ARMA Impact Strategy Survey, Vertigo Ventures Impact Landscape Survey, and the Accomplished Assessment of Institutional Support and Staff Awareness of Research Impact. This, you can see the 6 different dimensions that you can self-assess by going through the questionnaire. And I would like to say that this toolkit is free, it's confidential, and it is open to anyone to use it, not only to ENLIGHT universities, okay? It was published in April last year, and it has been used by more than 20 universities, if I am correct, and more than half of them are non-ENLIGHT universities. So I think we are doing a good job in disseminating the accomplishments that we are now having. We are working in upgrading this toolkit in such a way that can help also monitor impact eventually. Well, the second initiative that we have launched in the context of RISE is the Impact Awards to recognize and give visibility to research endeavors at ENLIGHT universities that are exemplars in planning for and achieving impact. In fostering research impact awareness and also promoting impact leadership among our academics, the Impact Awards are intended to provide awarded research teams with increased visibility to their research impact approach, the pathway, as was mentioned by Gloria, and the projects. Then we will give visibility through the ENLIGHT website, the repository of good practices on research impact, which is available also in the website, and it is another result of the effort that we have done in RISE. And we are also promoting it in social media, international workshops and conferences. Of course, if this is an award and we want to incentivize moving towards being impactful, we are providing financial support to give visibility in relevant international World Social Conference, the work that these awardees are doing, and of course by being recognized as an awardee of these Impact Awards, and the representatives of these awarded teams we call the Impact Ambassadors. We are also giving them the possibility of being part of a wide research, of a wide network of other teams within ENLIGHT, in such a way that we promote the sharing of knowledge and good practices and mutual learning, which is also part of this disseminating the impact literacy and also help our universities to be more impactful. And of course, we are giving them the opportunity to support and influence the ENLIGHT Impact work. So this is with these two key initiatives, I again give the floor to Gloria to explain the methodology and the toolkit that we have created.
Okay, thank you, Igor. So we have talked about the concept of impact. Igor has explained about impact-driven university and the different initiatives in ENLIGHT Rise that we are carrying out in order to promote it. And now I would like to talk and share with you our ENLIGHT methodology for impact assessment. Our ENLIGHT methodology, well, there are lots of information here. I have lots of methods to pass through here, but I try to remember everything. So this methodology was developed in the context of our Erasmus Plus first round project, and it has been developed and tested, I go to that later as well, through 3 pilot case studies. So, and it is in a continuous process of improvement and refinement. Before I go to the details and explain the specifics of our methodology, I would like to highlight 2 things here. The first one, you can have a look at it at our ENLIGHT web page, Impact Repository. It is the first source that is in the repository, so you can download it to have more information about it. And secondly, I also would like to highlight that this was developed in the context of education and training activities. Even if it was developed in that context, I think that could be of use and of interest also for the research community and for research cases and projects. However, we need to test it in those cases because it was not tested with research projects. It was just developed for activities that were developed in the context of ENLIGHT Erasmus Plus education and training. So this is before going into the details. So our methodology is conceived as a sequential process, including 6 phases. And you have here the 6 phases. I'm going through it later, which are highly interrelated and retrofitting the next phases in a circular approach. I would like to also point out that even if it is a circular process, our implementation and testing of the methodology has allowed us to understand and check that this is not a linear process, a unidirectional process. We often advance and have to take a step back to further refine the previous phases. So for each phase, there is a set of questions and tools that allow us to find the answers to go further in the next phase. Now, the 6 phases. For us, I would say the most important is the first one, the purpose setting. Why do you want to do this impact assessment and for what purpose? And depending on the objective and the purpose of your impact assessment, why are you assessing this? The type of assessment will change. And what could be the reasons? Could be for accountability, for instance, for reporting to a funder, funding agency. This could be one example, but could be also for legitimacy purposes, showing a positive image of your organization, of your research team. But it could be also to benchmark, or even to, very importantly, understand and improve, adapt your actions for the future. So there are different objectives, different purposes, and depending on the purpose, of course, your assessment will be different. In the case of the assessment and the pilot case impact assessment that we carried out, the objective was to actually do these and test this methodology. So it was very much focused on methodological approaches and not so much on assessing the impact of those activities. This is the first step. The second step, it's about the scope, defining what is actually going to be assessed. Who are the main affected stakeholders, and which indicators, quantitative, qualitative indicators, are we going to use to assess those activities? And in those, it is in the context of this second phase that we develop this theory of change pathway, the one that I've tried to explain you in previously. Then the third phase, the data collection analysis phases, is the collection of data, how to collect all that data, which type of data are we going to collect, and analyzing that data as well. The assessment is, as the word says, is giving a value, is assess, categorize the observed outcomes and impacts. And after that, we communicate and contrast those observed outcomes, impacts, with the responsible people of the action, but also with the stakeholders. And I will say also the sixth phase is one of the most important. Which strategies are you deploying to manage those identified impacts? And here I think there are two types of strategies. The strategies for improving that action, that research project initiative, but also strategies for future impact assessment. What did we capture? What we didn't capture? What should be captured in the future? So there are these two types of strategies on the action itself, what should be improved or done in a different way to maximize, minimize the observed outcomes, impacts, and strategies for future impact assessment. So as I was saying, and I'm not going into the detail here, I think it is we have tested that methodology through 3 pilot case studies on challenge-based education, mobility, but also our regional academies and the European Global Dialogue, so key actions of the ENLIGHT Erasmus Plus project. And you can see the results of these 3 pilot case studies in what we call our narratives of change that are available at the ENLIGHT Impact repository as well. Lessons learned. I think this is very important. What we learned during this testing with the pilot case studies. As I was saying, the purpose setting phase, the first phase for us, is one of the most important phases. The importance of distinguish between attribution and contribution, as I already explained. And here I would like to go deeper, the stakeholder consultation. Between us and this community, we took lots of time to take in consideration the point of view of stakeholders, both on the expected outcomes and desired impacts, and evidence of this, what evidence would allow us to capture that, but also on the observed changes later. And stakeholders' involvement was extremely relevant in order to identify outcomes that were not necessarily expected by our action leaders of action representatives, but also to identify not only new outcomes, but undesired outcomes as well that were identified during that process. Then another lesson learned, the importance of combining quantitative and qualitative approaches and indicators. And we have tried to reflect that in what we call the narratives of change. And this is the document that is available at the repository, where in a narrative, you explain the observed changes, the observed impacts, with the support of quantitative data and qualitative data as well. The importance, and I think Sylvia is around and she knows what I'm talking about here, the distinction between ideal and realistic indicators. As theoretical people, we can think about lots of indicators for measuring, assessing a specific change. But then we need to be realistic on what can be actually captured and the means we have available for capturing those indicators, the means, the time, and even if this has taken place and can be measured or not. So this is very important to take in consideration an impact assessment exercise. More project speaking language, we thought as a major conclusion that it is very important to combine different assessment exercises, the performance, the quality assurance, and the impact exercises, because as I mentioned before, these concepts are interlinked and one indicator can serve the three types of exercises. It depends all on the narrative and the intention you have to use it. Communicating, contrasting, and managing those results is very important. And having present that the impact assessment is or should be a continuous process since there are long-term impacts. I think an important lesson as well of that exercise that it was not just an assessment, but it allowed us to raise the overall Alliance impact awareness and literacy. So with that, I would like to conclude here, and I think we still have 15 minutes for discussion. But before going to that, here it is a link to our impact repository where you have all these sources and documents and as well good practices on research impact. And here important to highlight that the focus is on research impact, but also links to other initiatives that we are developing. Coming soon, we are planning to publish a new section in this webpage with training resources, a series of YouTube videos, webinars, specifically on research impact. And we are also designing a research impact training program for and target to our research support officers. In any case, you can always reach us through this email. And with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gloria. If you can unshare your screen, then we can see each other. And if there's any questions, just feel free to raise your hand or ask a question in the chat if you don't have a microphone.
Perhaps Esther or Haunia, I think you are around if you want to complete or add something to what we have said. Please go.
Yeah. Yes, feel free to complement what we have said. Yes.
Thanks, Gloria, Igor. I think you've covered it very well in quite detail, all of the activities of the group. So I don't think there's anything else to add. Of course, we shared a link to the University of Galway's Research Impact Toolkit, and please do visit that. Everything is open and accessible for all to use.
Okay, any questions? So it's either very clear or you're totally overwhelmed with all the information you got from our colleagues who spent years working on this and now dropped it in your lab in like 30 minutes. There's one question in the chat, so can you pick it up?
Can you read it, please? Or the person who raised it? I have lots, okay.
Yes, we will share the presentation, of course. We will give it to Henk, and I think Henk, as responsible of this webinar series and Work Package 6, he can deliver it to you, no problem with that. And there is a previous question, what would be the most important?
I will, that's a very interesting, I will try to give that explanation. I read the question for everyone. What will be the most important reason to track impact, would you say? And I have the feeling that sometimes it is reduced to just proving that what you do is worthwhile, but is there more to it? Okay, on this, I come back to the why, the purpose setting. Why are you doing and trying to prove you are impactful? I think there are different reasons. It could be to, and for me the most important one is to know yourself as individual necessarily, but your organization, your activity, and the what changes and what effects, what for are you doing this research, this activity, this education and training program? It is for knowing the effects and the changes that the work you are doing are bringing about. For me, this is the most relevant. Then, of course, it depends on the people. And then there are, for accountability purposes, you have to justify why you are receiving funding. This could be one reason. Another reason could be also to sell your organization and to show that your organization is very good at doing that job as well. But I've seen Hania wants to add something on that.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah, exactly. And just to add to that, particularly now, a lot of funders will ask for, midterm reviews. So gathering and tracking this type of evidence to report back to funders on your progress is useful. But I think more importantly, and kind of in terms of what Gloria mentioned, you will have impact goals, of course, in your research and your career, and it allows you to kind of keep track of that and sort of how you're progressing along that pathway to the impact. Later on, of course, if you were to write an impact case study to gather and evidence your impact, having tracked it along the way is much easier when you are trying to find those pieces to corroborate what you're saying has been impactful.
Yeah, I would like to say something that when we are talking about impact, the underlying question is, so what? I mean, I am just producing this research paper. I am conducting this project. I am delivering a new program for educating, in quantum technologies, for example. The question is, so what? Who cares about that? Who is benefiting from that? Who is being affected by that? So what? That's the question about impact. And we have to keep that in mind all the time, that what we are talking about impact, we are talking about the relevance, but not the relevance in absolute terms, because relevance will depend on the stakeholder that we are consulting. This can be, your government, because they are funding you. This can be an association of patients because they are going to be affected by your last drug that you have designed, or this can be some societal group This can be a company that will take advantage of the technology that you have developed. So the question behind impact is always, so what? And so what is not an absolute question, is a relative question to the stakeholder. This is why we are insisting so much in the stakeholder consultation, in involving and engaging with the stakeholders in the process of assessing impact or managing the impact. So for me, when we are, asking about which is the most important reason, is because we always have to answer that question, so what?
Okay, there's another question in the chat. There's a follow-up from Yorick, but there's also a question from Nicole. Maybe we can take that first.
Yeah. Okay, I see this question about the philosophy, Faculty of Philosophy. So I think this is a very good question. And not only for the Faculty of Philosophy, I must say that I come from the theoretical physics field. So sometimes I have wondered what is the impact of basic research or a theoretical physics. And I would say here that we have to think also in terms of, for example, in the case of philosophy, of these so basic disciplines, that we have to put this also in historical perspective, because by conducting something so theoretical as the theory of relativity or quantum mechanics, for example, or some other concepts in philosophy, we are changing the image that we have of nature. We are changing the image that we have of society itself, of ourselves as human beings. We are, introducing ourselves in the realm of other species and so on. So, of course, philosophy, theoretical physics, or any other, very basic field, it has a profound impact, although maybe it is not an immediate impact in this particular group of people, is having an impact in the way in which we are building our own image of society, of nature, of ourselves. So I think we have to think long term. We have to think, broader than just specific societal stakeholders. And of course, the Faculty of Philosophy and philosophy activity, research activity, can have, a great impact. Just think of Newton, think of Kant, think of all those people that have shaped, the image that we have of ourselves and from our world.
I think it ties a bit into the question that Nicole asked before that. So what are the metrics for measuring impact? So maybe Gloria, or can you say something about that?
I think there are lots of metrics around, lots of suggestions around, but as I was saying, impact is context dependent. It depends on your specific activity, your action, your context, your stakeholders, the area you are working on. So you can take inspiration, of course, from performance indicators. You can take inspiration of quality assurance standards. You can take reference indicators related to societal engagement. But what is here the core of the question is the changes. What would allow us to assess those changes, to measure and capture those changes? And those changes depend on the context you are actually working. So there are lots of examples on environmental impact assessment, or even on business impact. You can all take that as reference. There is a huge list. Again, and you can have a look at the repository here again as reference, but it all depends on the specifics of your project.
Yeah, and I think from your scheme, you started thinking from achieving the impact, and then you reasoned back to the types of activities you would do, and then hope for achieving the impact that you wanted. So I think that's a way of thinking. And for instance, if you want people to not live in poverty, there's various studies you could do to help them to alleviate one of the foundations for living in poverty, for instance, and you measure it. So in fact, it's like action research if you do the whole cycle, participatory action research. So for me, impact is more like a way of thinking about your research and always remembering why you are doing it. And for me, it's always been a motivation in my research work, for instance, in environmental sciences, when I was still a researcher, because I wanted to have this impact, a positive impact on the environment. So I think for lots of people in medical research or maybe social research, it's the same thing. But I don't know if there's any more questions. We're almost out of time, but I don't know whether Zoom will kick us out or we can continue as long as there are questions. So anybody? Because if not, then I want to thank Igor and Gloria again. And as said, we'll share the video of this as soon as we have all the consent forms in and edit the video and we put it online. I will send all the participants an email at the moment that we have put it online. And I'm sure that if Gloria sends me the slides, I will add them to this message, and then you have the slides separately from the explanation in the video. So I think with the slides, the video, and the toolbox, we're all set now to start thinking impact-wise. So thanks again for your time, and wish you a good working day, and I hope to be able to announce the next webinars soon, but still depending on the presenters to fix a date with us. So goodbye and see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Bye.